Okay, it's complicated. Okay, we left off by the Mishnah, right? Ein Aleph Amid Aleph. Yeah, right, we left off in the Mishnah. Yeah, so we're talking about what's included in the chutzner. So the Mishnah says, "Loy es habar, v'loy es hagas, v'loy es hashoivach." When you sell the chutzner, you're not selling the bar, you're not selling the gas. Right, the gas is a wine press, right? And v'loy es hashoivach, and not the dove coat, the chicken coop, right? So my question that I'm not sure about is, I mean, there's a lot of things I'm not sure about, but is this a gas dafka? Like, how come the Mishnayos keep rotating between wine press and olive press? Is this dafka wine press is not included? No, anybody have any insight?
I had
No,
the same question as you. That's why I thought the Mishnah was rotating. It means both.
it means, you know, how, why? I mean, that's why one Mishnah says yeah and one Mishnah says no.
Yeah, in different cases. Yeah.
You think so? That's, I mean, that would be a push to shot. Okay, I mean, unless is there something larger about one over the other? No, anybody know anything
I
about
thought it.
wine
I
press
thought
and
it was
olive
based
press?
on the case. Olive presses are usually in the barn or in the home or in a bias. Wine presses are usually out in the open on the field. So one's when you're selling a sub, the one's when you're selling a house. But other than that, they're the same thing.
So maybe that's the difference. Here we're talking about a chutzah, right?
Yeah, or a field. Yeah.
Okay, so then it makes sense that it says wine press.
We had
No?
an Italian neighbor in East New York. They used to make wine in their basement.
Oh, did they have a
Yeah.
press?
I was never there, but they know they had big barrels and stuff. And a Zayda from Italy came over, and he worked enough years to get Social Security for the rest of his life, and he made wine in the basement.
I hear. Don't they? Don't Italians also make olive oil? Aren't they? Isn't that a thing?
Yeah, in Godfather, they made olive oil. Yes.
On Godfather? I didn't understand one word of Godfather, so I can't even I can't say I would
Well, you missed a
That's the
lot
reason
then.
why
Sorry.
olive oil went up over the last 6 months. There's been a drought in Europe, so the olive trees are not growing as well.
I hear.
It's a Mediterranean growing thing. Greece,
Yeah.
Spain, Italy. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, whatever it is. I don't know. Okay, so you're saying that there would, I don't know what you're saying. You're saying that there would be enough nafkamina between, or there's no nafkamina.
No,
It's just a matter
I
of,
don't think there's any realistic nafkamina. It's just an idealistic one. The base Chabad is usually indoors. The base Gas is outdoors, generally speaking. As I said that, I remember what Ibarra just said. When I was a kid, we used to make wine at home too, indoors. But I think
yeah, but
usually
you
with the larger wine processors, they press it outdoors.
saying you press the wine when you make your own wine
Yeah.
with a
We did
real
it for the
So
olive
kids.
press, with a
Gertrude,
real wine, a real
how did you
grape,
folks
whatever
make
it's
the
called.
olive oil? How did you folks make the olive oil? Indoors or outdoors?
We never made olive oil.
Okay, so you can only be paid on the wine, but not on the
No, but
olive oil.
in general, wine presses they go straight from the vine to the press. It's a different kind of press. The Beis Habad is generally indoors because of the kind of press, the way that the stones work. The Beis Habad works with stones. The Beis Hagas works with wood. It works differently. A wine press is a much larger laterally. The Beis Habad is larger vertically.
Yaakov, when the Skalena, we had the Tzeis Shalom for the Skalena. So I don't know how many years ago it was. So my Zevi was 3. Yeah, so it was like 46 years ago something, when we had the suit on the Sunday with the Rebbe, and the Gaba, Mrs. Goldfein had some kind of press, a hand press, obviously, in the kitchen, and the Rebbe's Gaba took a whole big fresh grapes, and he made grape juice. This is what the Rebbe was able to drink and make a pure guff and say l'chaim tos. Yeah.
Well, he didn't drink anybody else's.
And also, I don't think he was able to drink wine anymore, the Rebbe. That's what I think. Zicher not schnapps. I don't think he was able to drink wine anymore. I think so. Maybe what you were saying, that he wouldn't drink from anybody else. That's possible too, obviously. But yeah.
Saying that, yeah, it would make sense at that point if he wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, whatever it is. Okay, but so I'm not sure. I mean, the consensus seems to be that it's lav dafka, right? And it's both. What's going on with my phone? Hold on. There we go. Okay. Anyways, fine. Okay, so that's the first part of the Mishnah. So again, it's not including a sale of a yard is not including any of the how do you say it? Accessories. Right? And then Bain Charavin, Bain Yeshuvin, we're on the third line down. And whether they were Charav or whether they're Beyishuv, meaning it doesn't make a difference whether they're no longer being used or they are being used. The tzarich likach loy derech. Now, and we had this couple of blot ago. So if it's not sold, so how's the seller getting to it if it's not sold? I mean, he sold his whole yard, but he didn't sell his wine press. He didn't sell his bar. So how's he getting to it? So v'tzarich likach loy derech. The Rebbe Kiva holds he's got to buy himself a path. Or rent a path. Chacham say he doesn't have to. And this machlokes is based on whether a seller is considered, if a seller is considered generous or not, right? Rebbe Kiva holds he's generous. So Mamela he's selling everything that he could possibly sell. The Chacham hold he's not generous, so therefore he is not selling the walkway. Maida Rebbe Kiva is man shama like chutz mi'elu, and Rebbe Kiva's maida when the seller says, "I'm selling you the land except for the bar, etc., she'ein tzarach likach derech," that you don't need to, that he doesn't need to take a derech for him. Fine, machron la'acher. If they sold the bar or the wine press, meaning the yard stayed with the seller, but he sold it, so machron la'acher Rebbe Kiva, I mean, tzarach likach derech. He doesn't have to buy a place, right? Meaning it's included. When he sells a guy a bar, included in the price of the bar is the rights to walk. And the Chum say, no, he needs to, because it's the same like he's stingy. He's only selling him the bar. He's selling him anything else. But that's all when it's a sale of a nice and matana. But if he's giving us a present, nice and as kula, then you're giving everything. Because the Gemara is thinking now that a matana, when somebody gives a present, they're usually much more generous than when they sell. So he sold him, he sold him a field. So he's including the wine press and the bar, etc., etc. Fine. Ha'achin shechalku. So you have brothers who are splitting a Yerusha. Zachu b'sada, zachu b'kula. If one guy decides to take the field, he gets the whole field. Meaning, you can't say that oh, you're getting the field. Let's say one son's getting a car and the other one's getting the fields. And the one with the car could say, oh, you're only getting the field. You're not getting the bar, etc. No, he gets the bar also. Why? I mean, maybe that's a machlokes, but he could say that whatever rights my father has, that's what I have. Hamachzik b'nichsei ager. If somebody is machzik in the nichsei ager, meaning a ger dies and he has no relatives, so if somebody makes a chazak on it, hichzik b'sada, hichzik b'kula. Once he makes the chazak on the sada, he's machzik on the whole thing. Meaning, your guy can't come along and say, "Oh, you only made the chazak on the field. I'm going to go make a chazak on the bar and on the wine press." That doesn't work. Hamakdish is a sada, and then if somebody makes a field into hektish, so now does he make the wine press and the bar and the dove coat? Does he make that all into hektish? So makdish is a sada, hektish is kula. He's makdish the whole thing. Shimon says a makdish is a sada, loy hektish ella es a charav hamurkav es sadin hashikma. Right back to our sycamore. Yeah. So Reb Shimon says if you makdish the sada, you're only makdish the charav tree, a murkav charav tree. I mean a grafted charav tree, and that's the carob tree, the boxer tree, and the sad and ashikma is a cut sycamore tree. Meaning because he holds. What's the machlokes? The machlokes is whether you say is hektish a sale to hektish. When somebody gives something to hektish, is it a matana to hektish, in which case he's going to be more generous, or is it a sale to hektish, in which case we have the machlokes whether he's going to be generous or not. All right. So Rosh Hashanah holds that it's going to be Rosh Hashanah holds it's going to be like a present. I'm sorry, Rosh Hashanah holds it's going to be a sale. I'm sorry, I keep saying Rav Sheshes because it's Rav Shit. It's not Rav Sheh. It can't be Rav Sheshes.
Yeah.
It's Rav Shimon. It can't be Rav Sheh. I think I'm saying Rav Sheshes of Adonai. It's Rav Shimon, right? Yeah, sorry about that. So anyways, but that's what the machlokes is, whether hektish is considered a matana or hektish is considered a sale. Fine. So then the Gemara says, Mashno mechro, mashno matana. What's the difference between a sale and what's the difference between a matana? All right, meaning what gives us what tells us that one is more generous than the other? So Pirish Yehuda ben Nekusi lefnei Rebbe. Yehuda ben Nekusi said in front of Rebbe, "Zeh Pirish, v'zeh like Pirish." And one of them, he said, by the matana, he said, "I'm giving it to you." Right? But the seller said he's not giving it. I'm sorry, he didn't say he's not giving. He just said he didn't say. Meaning, by the case of the matana, he said, "I'm giving you the wine press and etc. etc." By the sale, he didn't say anything. So Gemara says, "Hi zeh pirush zeh pirush zeh pirush zeh pirushu." It's an interesting way of wording the question. But the Gemara is saying, "Well, if that's the case, so then the way I'm understanding this question is basically Gemara is asking, well, what's the chiddush? If he said it, and if he didn't say it, right? Meaning, what gives you? It doesn't say it. The Mishnah doesn't say that either one said anything, right? Meaning, we're saying that the difference between a matana and a sale is one he specified, one he didn't specify. So I'm saying, what do you mean it doesn't say that in the Mishnah? Why, again, getting back to our classic question, is why sometimes the Gemara has no problem with adding words into the Mishnah, and why sometimes it does have a problem with adding words in the Mishnah. I don't think I'll ever know the answer to that question, but that's the
It looks
Gemara
like over
clearly
here, it
asking
could
that
be
here.
this is today's muster line. It's not Rebbe Yehuda ben Nakusa. It's Samson Shmerel that walked into Rebbe's base medrash and said, this is pshat. And he got it completely wrong, because obviously the Mishnah doesn't mean this. So the Mishnah spends 2 lines on asking the kasha, which really they should have just kicked him out.
Okay, I don't know. You think so?
Otherwise, why doesn't the Gemara say Rabbi Yehuda ben Nakusa something? Every one of Rebbe's Talmidim was a massive Amoyre. And Rav Huna, Rav Chia. And here you have Yehuda ben Nakusa. You ever heard of him before? This some guy that walks into Rebbe's base
Yeah.
measure and says, "Oh, this is Pirish, this is not Pirish." Any of us would say it's not the case. The Mishnah obviously means a matana is different than a mecher.
Okay, I don't know. I can't say that that's okay. Maybe. Either way, but that's the Gemara's asking. Gemara's asking what it doesn't say anything about it. And then I thought you were going to say something else. Pirish Yehuda ben Nekusya. Pirish, right? The Gemara had to use the lashon of Pirish, right? Why didn't it say like Betiritz, right? It had to use Pirish so that we have the word Pirish about 10 times in 3 lines. Right? Okay, whatever. Anyways, so that's the Gemara's kasha. It doesn't say that anywhere about Pirish and not Pirish. One of them he should have said, and one of them he didn't have to say. Right? Meaning by a matana, he should have said that he was not including, he's giving him the field, he's not including the wine press and the dove coat and this and that. Right? But he didn't, and so the assumption is a matana. Right? But this one, but by a sale, he didn't have to say it because the default is that it's not included. Right? Fine. Ahu damar lahu. So it was a guy who said, Havule laplanya besa de machzik mea gulfi. Give this house that holds 100 barrels. That holds 100 barrels, meaning the house is big enough to hold 100 barrels of wine. Meaning that was the simon of what he's selling. Right? That's so ishtakach to have a machzik me'aves, and so the house held 120. So Marzutra, meaning, so now what do we do here? He told him he's selling him this house that holds 100 barrels. And, but I'm sorry, 120 barrels. It only held 100 barrels. So does that mean that he gets to keep the house or not? No, I think I said the opposite. He said, I'm giving him a house that holds 100. And then it came out that the house holds 120. Sorry, that's the way the case. So now, does he at least get to keep the 100, or we say he's got the wrong house? So he said he's giving him 100. May have asked him, he said he's not giving him 120. So all he's getting is the 100 barrel section of the house. He's not getting the whole house. Ravashi Amar Miloi Tanandin, we not learn that this whole thing is when there's a seller. But a matana, he gives everything. How? Right? So since this was a matana here, so he gets to keep it. So we see from the story that when somebody gives a matana, he gives it generously. So to here, somebody who gives a matana gives it generously. Right? So since he's generous, Mamela, well, matana includes everything in the field, but a mechira does not. Fine. Then the Gemara says, "Amakdish es hasada hikdish." So this is a long sugi now, but
So Yaakov, is this Gemara like a raya that I mean, hard to say, but there's some sort of mitzias.
Metzias about a matana. What, that people are generous?
And Ein Ra, Ein Yafa is also. Are they arguing about what? Or so it's not mistaber. They're arguing about the nature of people, and now we're saying, oh, if you give him matana, mistama. I assume it's because the person wants to give. Everybody agrees he wants to give more, or when you give him matana, there's much more likelihood that the guy's going to be be'ein yafa.
Yeah, that's what it's saying.
Right, I'm saying, does this have any bearing on that other machlokas about by mecher?
Or not.
When it's not, there's no disagreement by matana. Everybody agrees by matana. Okay.
Yeah, it seems like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay, so now we're on to hektish. This is going to last a couple of blot until the end of the parak, actually. So makdish is a sada hektish. So we said that we have a machlaikis when you make hektish, just to repeat. So a matana, you give generously. A sale is a machlaikis, whether you give generously or not. Hektish is a machlaikis, whether it's considered like a matana or it's considered like a sale. So that's anytime you have like double machloksim, so that makes things a little confusing. So Amar Rav Huna, Avgav Amar Rabbanan Hakoina Shnei Ilanis V'Sei Shechaveiroi Hareza Lekana Karka. So we're going to see later on, that later on, meaning about 10 blot from now, that when you sell two trees back then, it sounds foreign to us, but back then it seemed like they would sell trees within people's yards. I mean, people would buy individual trees, right? So let's say a
I think
guy bought,
they would buy for the Paris, no? Now I have
yeah,
apples. I bought two apple trees.
Paris
Now I
off
have
of the
apples
wood,
to eat. Right.
right? But not getting the karka. He's not buying the field. He's just buying
Right.
the trees, right?
Right.
So if he buys two trees, the Gemara says if he buys two trees, you're not kind of the karka, right? Mochar karka, right? But if a guy sold the field, that's again. So the first case is a guy bought two trees, he didn't buy the karka. So then he's not kind of the karka. All he owns is the actual tree. If the tree falls down, Pashtus is that's it. It's his tough luck. He does not have the right to plant another tree there because he doesn't own the ground. He owns the tree, and that's it. The other way around, Machar Karka, let's say a guy sold his field, but he told the guy, I'm selling you the whole field, but I'm keeping these two trees, then Yesh le Karka. In that case, he does get Karka. Because that's what we think we assume is his intent. When he's holding two trees, he's not holding on to the two trees, he's holding on to the two trees and the Karka that's in between the two trees. And even according to Rabbi Kiva, who says that normally a person sells generously, right? And if he sells generously, then he sold his whole yard except for two trees. He would mean that he's only holding on to the two trees, not to the karka. But the Gemara is saying right now, the Gemara is going to go back and forth on this. It's saying that it's going even according to Rabbi Kiva, who says that you normally sell generously. But Hanimili Gabi Bar Vadus, that's by if you have a bar or a hole in the yard, so you're selling that too. The loy become machashi apa'ara because it's not being machish the ground. Right? Aval ilana is meaning you're gonna give him the the seller is not taking any sort of loss by leaving it in letting somebody have a bar nadus. Aval ilana is to come mechashi vara, right? But trees that obviously they take the nutrients out of the ground, right? So now he's losing out. So then on Tama Bays and Isa Deloy Shire, if he didn't leave over the land for himself, lay malay, then what the buyer will be able to tell him is like Akari Lanach Shkol Vizol, take your trees and get out of here. Right? Meaning if the guy, when he's selling his yard and he's keeping two trees, right? So if he's saying that, it must be that he's keeping the ground, because otherwise the buyer can come and say, I don't want your trees in my property. Right? I mean, at some point he could lose it. Which again, I'm not so sure why, because then why is that not by every time somebody just buys trees? Why is that not a taina? Okay, I don't know. I'm not sure. But either way, so the Gemara is saying again that Rabbi Kiva's maida, even Rabbi Kiva would be maida that when a guy keeps trees for himself, he's holding on to the karka that's in the trees. What are you saying?
It's like the Meiser Rebbitzin would have been with Rav Lezer Silva. You know the Meiser?
Oh, on the plate?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Take your
so,
chickens off of my plates. No.
right. Say the Maisa, yeah.
So Rav Lezer Silva used to travel. He used to wear a Rabbanisha hat all the time. And he traveled with food from his rabbits in Cincinnati. He only ate by his wife. So he once went to Rev Ruderman in Baltimore, and Rev Ruderman invited him back to the house for supper. So Rev Ruderman set the table, and then Rev Lezer Silva takes a chicken or whatever it was out of it from under his hat and puts it on the plate. So Rev Ruderman says, Rev Silva, please take your food off of my plates.
Right.
You want to have your hummus? I can have my hummus too. You're not the only one who can have a hummus.
So you're saying, so here, take your trees out of my yard. Right, but good. But I don't understand. So how come that can't happen in every sale like that? Unless that's understood in the sale, and here we're not sure. That's the way I'm not understanding it. Meaning, when you buy 2 trees from a guy, so it's understood that the guy can't say, get your trees out of my property. But here, when the guy's selling his property except for 2 trees, maybe the guy say, okay, get your trees out of here. Right?
And doesn't the Rashbam addresses this issue? No.
Well, the Rashbam with Tosfos, I don't have clarity. I mean,
Right, there's some
he talks
difference
about
between
it in
these
this
two
case. You know what I'm talking about in the regular case.
Right.
Yeah. So, anyways, but that's what the Gemara is saying. Now, right now, the Gemara is saying that this din, that the trees, the seller keeps the trees with the ground, with the land in between the trees, that is even according to Rabbi Kiva. That's what the Gemara is saying now. Now the Gemara asks, Tanan, second line down on the base, Tanan, Reb Shimon Oimer, Hamakdish es Asada. If somebody makes a field into hektish, lo hektish ala chorav hamurka v'sadan hashikma. Right? That's the end of our Mishnah. That Reb Shimon's shita is the field does not become hektish. The field becomes hektish, but not the bar and not the wine press. None of that becomes hektish. But the chorav hamurkav and sadan hashikma, those do. Right? But all the other right, but the other trees are included in the field. Right? Tani Allah, Amar Rab Shimon, Matam, what's the reason? Meaning, why dafka these 2 trees? Hoil v'yoinkim misada hektish, since they're getting their nutrients from a field of hektish, right? Meaning these trees are getting their nutrients from the field of hektish. So memela, those, even though normally a field is a field and the trees are the trees, right? But we're saying these things, since they get their nutrients from the hektish karka, so they have to become hektish, right? Now, how come regular trees not? Trying to remember how that goes. I don't know, maybe they don't need as much nutrients from the ground as these trees do. I mean, the Rashbam says that he's only being makdish things that mamish have a shaykhus with the sod, with the field, but they don't really. But the other trees don't have so much of a shaykhus. Okay, I don't know. It's not so easy. Not so easy to understand. But either way, but the kasha is not so hard. So again, Reb Shimon is saying that if you makdish a sada, the only thing that becomes hektish with it in the field, obviously besides for the field, is the carob tree that's murkav and the sycamore tree. And why? Because they're getting yanikav, they're getting their nutrients from the ground. If you say that when somebody sells a field and he keeps trees for himself, he's keeping the ground. So kikoyanki midanafshe koyanki. So then these trees, since again we said that trees are not included, so these trees we're saying are included in the ground. Why? Because they're getting their nutrients from the ground. But we said that when you maintain trees for yourself, which is the default by trees, then you're getting the ground in it too. Meaning we said that when the seller leaves trees for himself, he is maintaining the ground that the trees are in his property. If that's the case, so when this guy made this field into hektish, he really should be maintaining this sycamore tree and the boxer tree and the carob tree. But we're saying the reason why he can't is because it gets nutrients from the ground. But it's his ground, right? According to what we just said now, even Rebbe Kiva holds that it's his ground. He gets to maintain the ground. So Mamanashach, if it's his ground, so then it's not ground of hektish. So because of that kasha, the Gemara goes back. It says, okay, Rebbe Kiva would hold taka that it's not. It's what do you say it? That the guy that holds onto the trees does not own the ground. That's Rebbe Kiva Shita. So we say Reb Shimon to Amar Rebbe Kiva. Reb Shimon is saying like Rebbe Kiva, right? Who's his Rebbe? That a seller, when a guy sells, he sells everything. So therefore, even when he keeps the trees for himself, he's only getting the trees, he's not getting the ground. Rav Huna who said that he does keep the ground, the Amar Karabanon, he going like the Rabbanon. So Memela, it's not. Again, the Havamin of the Gemara was that this is going, even according to Rebbe Kiva, who says that a person who sells a field is generous with it. And then because of this kasha that it would be a stira, then we say no. We say it's going along party lines. Reb Shimon holds like Rebbe Kiva, which is that a person is generous with his sale, and even if a guy sells his whole field and he says he's keeping 2 trees, he only gets those 2 trees. He does not get the ground. And Rav Huna, who says he does keep the grounds, going like the Rabbanon, who says that a person sells things he's not generous. So where it says Karabanan Pshita. So what are you saying? Rav Huna saying this din that if a guy sells trees, the guy sells his whole yard and he says, I'm keeping 2 trees, that he gets to keep the ground that the trees are in, and that's Rav Huna's chiddush according to Rabbanan. That's Pashut. The Rabbanan said that a seller is stingy. Right? So if a seller is stingy, Avada, he didn't mean to sell him the ground. So Gemara answers, Nafkamina, the nafli hadashasalahu. No, the nafkamina would be if the trees fell down, can he replant them? If it was just Stama going according to Rabbanon, then the Rabbanon would say once the tree fell down, that's it. You're out. The seller is out. But according to the way Rav Huna is saying it, Rav Huna is saying a chiddush. He's saying not that he gets to keep the ground, that even if the tree falls or the tree gets ruined, the ground is still retained by the original owner. And Mamela, he's allowed to do that. He's allowed to keep it. So again, the Gemara is saying the Chiddush of Rav Huna is saying, even according to the Rabbanan, is that if it was stam straight the Rabbanan say, okay, the seller said he's keeping 2 trees, fine, he gets to keep the 2 trees as long as they're there. Once they fall down, he loses it. He cannot replant. And Rav Huna is coming along and saying, no, when a guy says he's selling his whole field except for 2 trees, he means those 2 trees and the karka that the trees are in. And even if the trees fall down, he gets to retain the entire karka. So yeah, so that's where the Gemara is holding now. You're going to ask a kasha that takes the whole next amud for the most part, and it's going to change pshat again. But that will be tomorrow's daf Be'ez Hashem. So we'll stop over here. You want to stop the record on?